as Paddy O'Connell's been finding out, around 150 pirate stations are broadcasting today, some of them less harmlessly than others.
The term pirate radio takes its name from the stations transmitting illegally from ships anchored just outside British waters in the 1960s. Arguably the most famous of these is Radio Caroline. Caroline was established just off Felixstowe in 1964 and broadcast the new wave of pop music unavailable to listeners elsewhere.
This is Europe's first and only album station, Radio Caroline.
It's very exciting to play in here, you know, because Caroline still occasionally is broadcast from this vessel. The Ross Revenge, the original ship, sank in 1980, and this was the third and final. Come into the record library, just soak it up. This place smells of old records. Christine, maybe the first one you ever bought is here. Living in a Box, look, that sounds like one for you. Or Aid, what about this one here? Sid James, Our House.
When we started, there was no popular music. The radio laws of Britain were restrictive to say you can't have a commercial radio station. The BBC had control of all the broadcasting in the UK. They had a policy that unless you were famous, you didn't get played. So you could be the best artist or band in the world and there was no way forward for you.
Caroline did have a massive impact, and I suppose the question really is, does pirate radio now perform that role, getting the music out there, making the names? Well, some of our biggest DJs did begin on other pirate stations like Kiss FM.
We came on in November 1985. At the time there were two commercial radio stations. For years there'd been a need for soul music on the radio. The team of people that I was leading, which was the Kiss FM team, actually went from pirate to PLC in the end. We actually achieved the one thing that we was out there trying to do, which was to become legal.
With so many legal stations available today offering such a wide choice in music and in features, you could argue that pirate stations have simply become obsolete.
There's a niche in the market that mainstream and commercial radio stations cannot fill, and so we are needed there. The penalties are very harsh. They can be severe. We could be in prison, we could be fined excessively. It's not enough to stop us doing what we do. We go ahead and take those chances because of the passion that we have for radio.
The biggest issue for us really is the interference that illegal broadcasters cause to other commercial radio stations and their listeners, but probably more importantly to emergency services. Take 2008 for instance, we received 40 complaints of interference from emergency services, predominantly from the London Fire Brigade, who were experiencing problems communicating with their fire crews.
Last year, police raided 40 pirate stations and they shut down 850 illegal transmitters. But even though it's illegal, new stations still start up. So all these years after Caroline began, pirate radio is still very much alive, and the evidence says it's here to stay.
Bill, when you were asked to perform in a film about Radio Caroline, I suppose it must have been the same as we asked Michael Sheen yesterday. It must have been great when you were asked to play Brian Clough, being a film about football in that era. A personal area of interest for you?
Yeah, definitely. It was Richard Curtis, who I've worked with before and who I like working with enormously. He called me and I just said yes to whatever it might be. Then he said, maybe, maybe you should read the script. And I did read the script, and I was cheered by the fact that it was about Radio Caroline. Radio Caroline and all those pirate radio stations were a very big deal when I was a kid, and it's difficult to explain now because there's no parallel for it, but there was absolutely nothing, and then Radio Caroline came along and you could hear everything. You could only hear your mum and dad's music, which was basically men and women singing in evening wear about the moon or the stars or something. And then it went...
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's all very healthy. It's all very healthy. But then it went directly to Jimi Hendrix burning his guitar and Pete Townsend doing a windmill and the Rolling Stones and lots of black American soul music. And it was a bonanza. It was like a revolution. And the only place you could get it was on the Pirates, so they were a big, big deal.
OK, well, the boat that rocked, of course, it was the premiere last night.
Yeah.
And we have got a little clip of it as well.
Carl, I just got a message from Shaw, and your mother is dropping by to pay us a visit for Christmas.
You're kidding? Well, when does she arrive?
Tomorrow. She was always very impromptu.
Was she?
Oh, yeah. Anyway, I thought you might like to know, in case you want to, brush your hair or hide the large stack of pornography you keep on that shelf.
Nobody does that look like you. The way you pointed to the unmentionable thing on the shelf like that. No, nobody can point like that. There's a lot of this going on in it. Was that somebody moving the camera, or was the whole floor moving?
There was a very, very expensive and sophisticated gimbal hydraulic thing in the studio, which was the only time I actually felt sick. They recreated the sway of the boat in the studio. On the boat itself, we were pretty blessed. The weather was cool and nobody got sick, but when we got in the studio, everybody went a bit queasy. So they used to rock it up, and you'd either rock it up to 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 if the weather got really bad. And it was quite difficult trying to act, because you did shake all over.